Hey everybody, it's me, Jose Segura, your SMEA president. Welcome to another episode of Fireside Chat with the President. All right. Hey, so you're receiving this on Friday, May the 8th, but I'm actually recording this on Thursday, May the 7th. So I have my SMEA shirt on. Still doing, my SMEA blue, waving my SMEA blue on Thursday. So I hope you are too. If you didn't do that this Thursday, there's always next Thursday, right? Got a few more of those before our year ends up. Speaking of end of the year, I'm really happy to report that yesterday during negotiations, we were able to complete bargaining on the addendum to our current school closure MOU, right? So we had that MOU, came out on March 30th, and this addendum is really an extension of that document. It provides some clarification, but it also provides information on items not covered in that original MOU. And so we're super excited about this, and we're glad that it's done, and we're looking forward to beginning to put these elements in place. So here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to go over and we're going to do a close read of the actual document. So this is going to take a little bit of time. It's about 15 minutes. So I know these videos are usually a little shorter than that, but I really want to give you an opportunity to hear exactly what was generated and why, and what does that mean for you, whether it's grading, it's evaluations, or it's our end of the year plan. And so take some time to really watch that and kind of absorb it. All right. Also, the email this video came in from also included a link to the actual document, so you can pull up your own copy of the addendum and have that accessible to you so that you can read through and make sure that you understand what's happening. So let's go ahead and go over, and we'll do our close read of the COVID-19 follow-up addendum. Good. All right. Thank you. Let's see if we can't get a close read of this document. So I want to emphasize before we start that this was a collaborative effort by both the association and the district. We spent a lot of time talking about these items, trying to make sure that we covered as many bases as possible, and that we took into account the needs of our students, our teachers, and our district. All right. So here we go. First paragraph. So let's start with this first guy right here. And this is really just an introductory paragraph. The real important part of this, if I really wanted to focus, is what's highlighted. And it says, unless specified within the addendum, it does not replace other language within the original MOU titled regarding COVID-19. So it was important for us to make sure that our original MOU stayed intact, unless we specifically stated within the content of this addendum that it did not. All right, let's move on to the next section. District and the association agreed to the following. So here is item number 1. And item number 1 says certificated bargaining unit members will access the SMBSD virtual learning plan in fulfilling professional responsibilities in the facilitation of new learning, as well as all other aspects of distance learning, including social emotional learning during this unprecedented time. All right, I highlighted this part right here. It says SMBSD virtual learning plan because that is really the focus here. The virtual learning plan has been sent out to you all a few times and inserted into communications from the district tier 1 team. So and I'm sure you've already accessed that, but if you've forgotten, then please head back there. Not only do they send it to us in a slideshow format, but they've also converted that up into an actual website or a web page where you can access all of the elements that are in the virtual learning plan. This next one is really just an extension. Part number 2 is an extension of 1. The district has provided resources, guidelines, and approved platforms for its certificated bargaining unit members to use and deliver content and support for the benefit of all SMBSD students. So these resources, guidelines, and approved platforms can also be found in the virtual learning plan. Links are in there, as well as through Clever, which is our teacher and student portal. So then we move down to the next part. And by the way, you were sent a hard copy of this as well. It's included in the email that this video was attached to. I broke mine up so that it would be easier for me to organize, but yours would have a continuation of text right after this number 2. I did a page break so that I could separate some of this stuff into chunks that are easier for me. All right, let's get to the part that I think a lot of you really want to know about, which is grading. So it says here, students will be held harmless for any grading period during the closure. That's super important. Our focus was really about, well, how do we make sure that students are not harmed because of circumstances that are clearly beyond their control? And so we really wanted to emphasize that as we moved forward. So let's start with junior high. There's going to be statements about comments, things like that. We'll talk about all comments at once. So let's just go through the actual grades itself for right now. And I actually have notes here, so I'm going to be reading from my notes whenever possible. So junior high. Junior high report card grades will be recorded as either credit or NA, along with specific feedback as to the reason for said marks. For TK6 report cards, for TK6 report cards will articulate students' progress as of March 13th, 2020, and provided as follows. And then you'll see here, this is a list of our standardized scores for those of us who are TK through 6th grade. So we're going to continue to use these. So let's talk about what that means. For junior highs, junior high, the focus is on giving a credit to a student if at all possible. So if you can, give credit. If there is nothing to base credit on, then you may select NA for that particular student. If the class has not begun because you are on a quarter system, so you had quarters 1, 2, and 3, but quarter number 4 started on the 20th of March, and of course, schools were closed by then you can give NA scores for the fourth quarter because there were no scores available if you'd like. And so that's really our baseline, right? Our baseline is give a score, give credit if you have work that you can justify credit for those students, give an NA if there was no opportunity to even begin those courses. And we'll talk about other options in a minute. So, as for junior high comments, let's talk about junior high comments. The district is looking into modifying the current comment section. Right now, junior high folks cannot insert comments, like their own hand-typed comments, only pull from predetermined comment options. So they're trying to open up that section for you all so that you are allowed to type in comments. And then we'll talk a little bit about a standardized comment that we're all going to use, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about elementary grades. So elementary grades, here we go. The focus is going to be, or the emphasis is going to be on providing a score for a student if at all possible. So that's going to be the kind of the priority here. So we'll be using our standards-based scores like 1, 2, 3, 4 or BDSE. If you have generated scores for students in any reportable area on or before March 13th, then you can include that information on the report card. So if you've generated some scores for students, then you can use that information to generate a reportable end of trimester grade for that academic area or that reportable area if you have the information to do so. Now, if you have a standard that's taught in trimester 2 that continues into trimester 3, you may, if you'd like, roll that trimester 2 grade over into trimester 3, or that standardized score into trimester 3, and essentially just continue that same standardized score from trimester 2 into trimester 3. All right. So then the third option is, let's see. So there we go. Actually, let me give you an example of that last part. So for example, I teach 3rd grade. One of the 3rd grade standards is know your math facts. So know math facts. Well, know math facts is a trimester 1, trimester 2, and trimester 3 reportable section on the standards-based report card. So if my student received, let's say they received a 3 in the 2nd trimester for standard-based scores, if I'd like, I can take that trimester 2 reported score or grade, and I can roll that in over and assign that same grade to the student for trimester 3. All right. So if a reportable curricular area was not reported on in trimester 2, right, and you do not have any data to generate an end of the trimester score for that student, that's work that's completed up to March 13th, then you may give an NA. So if you are an elementary teacher and there's a standard that doesn't roll from one trimester to the other, so there's no grade you can roll over. If you didn't get to a trimester 3 specific standard and you have nothing that's been generated, then you may provide an NA for that student. And so an example of that could be, again, 3rd grade's my example of geometry. Geometry is a 3rd trimester standard. So there's no trimester 2 score that I can just roll over into my tri 3 report card. And let's say I spent the first 2 weeks of the trimester 3 reviewing areas that students were having difficulty with. And so I wanted to do some review before I moved on to try 3 standards. And so I never got to geometry, never had lessons in that, never provided my students with any type of assessment. So I didn't record any data on their progress in that academic area. If that's the case, then I may put in an NA for the score for that trimester for those students. And so just to be clear that the NA isn't necessarily the go-to. It's if there's no other way to give the student a score, then that's what we're going to default to. All right, so let's keep moving on. We go down to here. Teachers may provide supplemental summary comments regarding student participation in distance learning. So for elementary, we're used to not only selecting from the pull-down menu of comments, but actually hand typing in comments for students. And so in this case, we're really going to provide a short narrative for parents that gives them an idea of how their student progressed through this trimester, what their level of participation was in distance learning, and really providing some feedback for that parent, as well as potentially a future teacher of that particular student. Like I said before, junior high doesn't currently have that option, but district is looking into opening that up so that they may. Now, if we go down to this next highlighted section, this statement reads, grades represent student progress as of March 13th, 2020, but may also reflect progress made during the distance learning time period. So what does that mean? Okay, so here we go. This, let's see. The first half of the statement, we get this. If I have data that's collected and I can report a score for that student on the report card for that academic area, great, I'm going to do that. But for the second half of this, the second half of this statement means if I choose, I can consider work done after March 13th as part of the student's overall grade, but only if it improves a student's grade. That could mean either the grade itself for those of us who use standardized scores, or it could mean going no credit to credit for our junior high folks. Remember, our goal here is to do no harm, right? So we want to make sure that our students are held harmless. If there's an opportunity to improve their score because of work that's been collected up to after March 13th, then great. But nobody's requiring teachers to generate work, and nobody's requiring students to generate work during this time between March 13th and the end of the school year. But you may if that is all possible. All right. So then we go down to the evaluation. That's section B. Evaluations is pretty straightforward. This language actually comes straight from our LMC joint communique about a week or two ago. So we really just pulled it right off of there. It just essentially says that if there's enough data to close out your evaluation for this particular school year, then we'd like the teacher and the administrator to go ahead and do that. Those of you who are required to have 2 observations, whether you were a newer teacher having 2 observations, or you were doing the peer-to-peer evaluation or the reciprocal evaluation that requires 2 observation cycles, as long as you got 1 of those in, you have enough data to close out the observation for the school year 2019-2020. And this last part, now, district organizational plan. The district will, let's read this. The parties agree that the district, in consultation and collaboration with the association, will prepare and communicate fully all applicable organizational plans with regards to the closure of the 2019-2020 school year and the opening of the 2020-2021 school year. This particular section, this section C, really includes all those things that we need to consider when we close out our school year. Things that just kind of happen normally or automatically because we're physically at school. Student supplies and returning books to the library, packing up our things, preparing for summer. Even if those of us who are retiring or changing school sites, we want to make sure that we get in there and we get all that stuff taken care of. Our CUMEs, student files, getting report cards filed. I mean, these are all the things that we do at the end of the year. And so what we've agreed to with the district collaboratively is that the district is going to take point on this. So the parties agree that the district is going to be the one that's preparing this document, and then the association, us, the union, we're going to consult and collaborate on it, provide input, get some clarity, make sure that we're really focused on putting out a good product that's going to address everybody's concerns about getting these things done and also focus on the health and safety of our members. And so the district will draft the organizational plan and the consultant collaborate with SMEA so that the final product is comprehensive and covers traditional end of the year responsibilities. We look forward to having a final document very soon, very soon. If circumstances or guidelines change, then the plan may be updated and modified as needed. And so that is almost the end. We had this last little bit right here, and this is important for us as a union, that the association does not waive its right to collective bargaining any or all aspects of the district's plans that impact mandatory subject of bargaining under the Educational Employment Relations Act. So that's in there to make sure that both parties agree to and understand that the union is not waiving their right to collectively bargain or to negotiate. If something occurs during the creating of the organizational plan, that would require us to do so. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Now let's head back to the Fireside Chat.
I'm back. Okay, so I hope that was informative and give you an explanation and a good idea of what that addendum includes and what it means to you individually. I do want to add one more thing, though, on that last section about the organizational plan. I want you to know that any organizational plan that's put out that addresses all of our end of the year or our closure activities, ensures that there's an emphasis is going to be placed on the safety and health of our members and district employees. And so there won't be any version of that document that will put anybody's health at risk during this time. We're still distancing, we're still in a school closure environment, and so just want to really emphasize with you all, because I know that's been a concern for some of our members, that their health and safety is going to be a priority. And I got to tell you, absolutely, it's going to be a priority. All right, so that's all I have for you today. If you have questions or comments, you know how to get a hold of me. Like I said in the video and the review of the addendum, we're going to hopefully have a finalized version of our end of this year plan or organizational plan soon, so that we can get it out to everybody and we can start moving towards that. And then the next big hurdle will be planning for the beginning of next year. There's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of things we just don't know. A lot of rumors, a lot of chit chat, a lot of conversations about possibilities, but the reality is we just don't know what the expectations are going to be on us, on our employer, on students, and in our communities when that time comes. But it doesn't mean we can't start planning, doesn't mean we can't start having those conversations, but definitely we want to make sure that any plan is one that follows all the available guidelines, the restrictions, and the conditions that are going to be placed on us by the county and state health departments, as well as our public health departments, as well as the the CDC, and of course our elected officials, governor, and other folks in the state of California. And so, again, safety is a priority. Safety of students, safety of staff, and of our community. All right, thank you very much.